What's up, everyone? How are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. If you enjoy this motive, then please like, share, and do comment.
Naruto Uzumaki had long ago accepted a simple truth about his life. Whenever something could spiral into disaster, it usually chose him as its landing point. He didn't remember a time when things had ever been easy. The village smiled at each other but flinched around him. Adults whispered. Children learned to avoid him before they learned their multiplication tables. He grew up on half answers and closed doors, never knowing where he came from. Only that whatever he was, people feared it. Even harmless pranks earned him looks usually reserved for criminals. The academy hadn't fixed that. He'd tried to laugh louder, train harder, dream bigger. Friends were few. Respect was non-existent. Graduation came late and ugly, stained by betrayal and revelations he hadn't been ready to carry. The truth about the monster sealed inside him, and why Irika's eyes sometimes held pain when they met Naruto's. Then came Team 7. Naruto had imagined it differently. Sakura smiling at him, not at him as a joke, but for real. A teammate who didn't sneer every time Naruto opened his mouth. A normal beginning. Instead, he got Sasuke Uchiha. And now they were trapped inside a prison of ice and killing intent. The mirrors surrounded them like a frozen nightmare, reflections multiplying endlessly. Needles screamed through the air, invisible until they were already too close. Naruto twisted, ducked, barely avoiding another strike that would have pinned him to the ground. He could handle this. He was handling this. So when Sasuke suddenly moved, stepping into the storm of Sunban, Naruto's mind went blank. The impact was sickening. Metal met flesh. Sasuke staggered, then collapsed. "What the hell are you doing?" Naruto shouted, dropping beside him. Sasuke didn't look back. His breath came shallow, uneven. Blood stained the snow beneath him. "I don't know," Sasuke muttered. "My body just moved." That answer hit harder than the needles. Naruto felt something inside him crack. This wasn't rivalry. This wasn't pride. Sasuke had moved without thinking, protecting him on instinct. And now the idiot was lying there, bleeding out, eyes dulling while muttering about unfinished grudges and revenge that suddenly felt small and stupid. Naruto's hands trembled. Anger surged, at Sasuke, at himself, at the masked shinobi hiding behind reflections like a coward. Then came the heat. It rose from deep inside him, roaring through his veins like wildfire. The world sharpened, sounds growing too loud, light too bright. Pain followed, burning, screaming, but Naruto forced himself to focus. Not now. Sasuke's heartbeat was slowing. Naruto could hear it, feel it. A voice echoed in his mind, ancient, calm, utterly unconcerned with consequences. Break the mirrors. End this. Naruto didn't argue. He launched forward, chakra exploding beneath his feet. Ice shattered as his fist tore through one mirror, then another. The prison cracked like glass under a hammer. The masked ninja barely had time to react before Naruto was there, rage fueling every movement. The punch landed clean. The mask shattered. Haku was thrown back, stunned, snow spraying beneath him as Naruto landed and split into shadows. Clones surged outward, some racing toward Kakashi's battle, others locking Haku in place. "Finish it," the voice urged. "I'm not killing him," Naruto growled. Haku looked up at him, eyes wide, not with fear, but something close to relief. Words spilled from him then. About loneliness. About being needed. About Zabuza giving his life meaning when the world had taken everything else. Naruto clenched his fists. He struck once, hard enough to knock Haku unconscious, not dead. A clone bound him quickly. The adrenaline was already fading, exhaustion creeping in, pain screaming to be acknowledged. Naruto turned and ran, mist thinning as the battlefield opened before him. Kakashi stood battered but breathing. Sakura guarded Tazuna, uninjured but pale. Zabuza swayed on his feet, fury barely holding him upright. As Naruto dismissed his remaining clones, a flood of memories hit him. Sasuke and Haku hidden behind equipment. Bound. Alive. And then, movement. Footsteps. Too many. Naruto's eyes snapped toward the tree line as figures emerged from the fog. Dozens of mercenaries. Armed. Smiling. At their center walked a short, cane-wielding man with a broken arm and a grin full of poison. Naruto felt the last of the warmth inside him coil tighter. The real fight, he realized, was just beginning. Crack. It ripped through the quiet like a bone snapping under too much pressure. Everyone froze. Naruto screamed. It wasn't loud, not at first, but raw. The kind of sound that clawed its way out of the chest before the mind could stop it. His hands flew to his face as he curled tighter, nails digging into his sleeves, body convulsing as if something inside him had just shifted the wrong way. Kakashi moved instantly, abandoning everything else. He was at Naruto's side in a heartbeat, gloved hands hovering, unsure where to touch without making it worse. "Naruto, look at me," he ordered, voice sharp with urgency. "What did you feel just now?" Naruto couldn't answer. His vision had fractured into burning shards of red and white. It felt like something was forcing its way through his eyes, twisting, grinding, tearing against nerves that were never meant to handle it. Inside him, the voice stirred again. Not amused. "You pushed too far, brat. Shut up." Naruto gasped, teeth clenched, breath hitching. "Didn't ask you." Zabuza stiffened where he sat, instinct screaming at him that something was very, very wrong. This wasn't poison. This wasn't delayed damage. This was internal. Haku was already kneeling, hands hovering inches from Naruto's head, eyes wide with horror and guilt. "I swear," he said quickly, desperately, "this isn't one of my techniques. I never touched his eyes, never. I don't even know a method that could." Another sharp tremor ripped through Naruto's body. Sasuke took a step forward before he realized he'd moved. His chest felt tight. This wasn't how Naruto was supposed to be. Naruto was loud, unbreakable, annoyingly impossible to keep down. Even when he lost, he bounced back with that stupid grin like pain was just another obstacle to laugh at. But this looked like Naruto was being crushed from the inside. "Oi!" Sasuke snapped, voice sharper than he intended. "Dope. Don't you dare pass out." Naruto laughed weakly, then immediately regretted it as pain spiked again. "Wow," he muttered hoarsely. "Team, worried about me? Guess the world really is ending." Kakashi's visible eye narrowed. That laugh didn't match the situation. "Your chakra," Kakashi said slowly, pressing two fingers lightly against Naruto's wrist. His expression shifted almost instantly. "It's surging, then collapsing, then surging again." Zabuza cursed under his breath. That kind of instability kills people. Haku swallowed. Unless something inside him is forcing it to happen. Silence fell. Everyone knew what that meant. Naruto felt it too. The heat that had carried him through the mirrors was still there, but now it was pressing back. Like something had noticed him pushing its boundaries and decided to remind him who truly owned the space inside his body. "You borrowed my power without permission," the voice murmured. "And now you pay the toll." Naruto squeezed his eyes shut as another wave slammed through him. "No," he rasped. "Not now. I'm still standing." The voice chuckled. Low. Amused. "Barely." Haku looked up suddenly. "Kakashi-san," he said urgently. "If this is what I think it is, then suppressing his chakra might make it worse. Then what do we do?" Sakura demanded, panic finally breaking through her composure. Haku hesitated, then spoke anyway. "If something is awakening," he said carefully, "then stopping it midway could damage him permanently." Sasuke's eyes widened. "Awakening?" Another crack echoed, this time closer, sharper. Naruto screamed again, and this time, red chakra leaked through his fingers. Not a flood, not yet, but enough to make every shinobi present tense in unison. Kakashi rose slowly to his feet, eyes locked on Naruto, voice grave. "Everyone," he said, "get ready." The mist around them began to swirl, not from the wind, but from Naruto. And somewhere deep inside him, something old opened one eye and smiled. The first sound came from Naruto. Not a cry, not a word, just a strained, broken exhale that didn't belong to someone awake or asleep. For a moment, no one moved. Naruto, Sakura asked softly, as if saying his name too loudly might shatter what little remained. His eyes were clenched shut, tears slipping down into his hairline. His mouth hung open, jaw trembling, as though his body was screaming but his voice had been torn away. He was rigid, unnaturally so, curled tight, every muscle locked in place. Then the sound came again. Crack. Kakashi stiffened instantly. So did Zabuza. Haku had already gone pale. That sound, Sakura whispered. Bones, Zabuza said flatly. They're breaking. Naruto's body suddenly went limp. For a terrifying second, it looked like he'd simply stopped. Kakashi was beside him in a heartbeat, easing him onto his back, hands steady despite the fear clawing up his spine. He shrugged Naruto's ruined jacket away and hesitated only a fraction before lifting his shirt. The seal on Naruto's stomach glowed. Not faintly, not subtly. Red chakra bled from it like heat mirage made solid, crawling over his skin, pulsing as though it had a heartbeat of its own. Before Kakashi could say a word, Naruto screamed. The sound ripped through the clearing, primal and raw, sending ice through everyone who heard it. Sakura flinched violently. Sasuke's breath caught. Even Zabuza's jaw tightened. This wasn't pain that came from wounds. This was something tearing its way out. The chakra surged, thickened, flooding the air with heat. Naruto's body jerked violently as if pulled by invisible strings. Kakashi and Zabuza tried to reach him, and were thrown back instantly, chakra burns flaring where the red energy lashed out. Another series of snapping sounds echoed. Too many. Too close. Kakashi forced himself upright again, heart hammering. No, this isn't happening. He wrapped his own chakra tight around himself and pushed forward once more, teeth clenched against the pressure. The red chakra resisted like a living thing, hot, violent, furious. Naruto arched violently. His back bowed. His limbs twisted in ways no human body should. The chakra burned, hissed, crackled, eating at cloth, skin, blood alike. Naruto's voice broke again, the sound no longer fully human. Kakashi froze. He couldn't reach him. He couldn't stop it. For the first time since becoming a Jonin, Kakashi Hatake felt truly powerless. Sasuke couldn't look away. He wanted to. God, he wanted to. But his eyes stayed locked on Naruto, on the blood, the shaking, the impossible pain that wrapped around him like a living nightmare. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. Naruto didn't stay down. Naruto got back up. That was the rule. Sakura retched violently beside him, but Sasuke barely noticed. His own wounds reopened, blood soaking through bandages, but the pain didn't register. All he could see was Naruto, the dope who annoyed him, the idiot who challenged him, the teammate who had stepped forward when Sasuke couldn't. Get up, Sasuke thought desperately. Get up like you always do. Then came a sound worse than all the others. A tearing, ripping pressure, like the air itself had been pulled apart. The red chakra swelled outward, completely engulfing Naruto's form. For a split second, his silhouette vanished inside it. Then, silence. The chakra collapsed inward, sinking back into Naruto's body as though it had never been there at all. Naruto fell still. No movement. No sound. Nothing. The clearing felt frozen. Kakashi approached slowly, every step heavy. He knelt, hands trembling as he checked Naruto's neck. Seconds stretched into an eternity. Then, there, Kakashi breathed. A pulse. Strong. Alive. He's alive. Sakura broke down completely, sobbing as she threw herself forward, clutching Naruto until Sasuke pulled her back gently, silently. Kakashi lifted Naruto carefully, shielding him from view, and for the first time no one argued, joked, or questioned anything. They just followed. Later, Tazuna's house. Naruto didn't wake. Kakashi made sure the bridge builder's family stayed away. They didn't need to see this. Not the blood, not the aftermath, not the fear. He cleaned Naruto slowly and found nothing wrong. No broken bones, no burns, no torn muscle. The blood washed away to reveal unmarked skin beneath, warm and whole, as if his body had rewritten itself. That frightened Kakashi more than the damage ever could have. When he finally checked Naruto's eyes, his breath caught. They weren't blue anymore. Not entirely. Violet bled into blue around the pupil, which had narrowed into a slit. At the edges, red darkened the color like a warning ring. Power lingered there, watching, waiting. Kakashi dressed him, allowed the others inside, and watched their reactions: shock, disbelief, relief. But none of them said what he was thinking. This wasn't an injury. This was a change. And whatever had awakened inside Naruto Uzumaki, it wasn't done yet. Naruto hurt. Not sharp pain. Not the kind that made him want to scream or curse the universe. It was worse than that. It was everywhere. A deep, dragging ache settled into his bones, like his body had been rebuilt overnight and forgotten to ask permission. His arms felt impossibly heavy. His legs might as well have been stone. Even breathing felt like work. And there was an itch, right on his nose. Of course. He tried to lift his hand. Nothing. Figures, he muttered weakly. The itch only got worse, made unbearable by the faint brush of hair against his face. Since when is my hair this long? He couldn't remember, but his mind felt fuzzy, like someone had shaken it too hard. Something sticky had been there before, blood, maybe, but now it was gone. He shifted instead, awkwardly rolling his face into the sheets and rubbing his nose against the fabric like an idiot. Relief. His eyes, though those were worse. They tingled. Not painfully, just wrong, like pressure building behind them, begging to be released. The sensation tugged at memory, dragging something unpleasant to the surface. The bridge. Sasuke falling. That burning rage. The voice. Naruto's breath hitched. That voice. Not loud. Not screaming. Just there. Calm. Certain. Like it had always been waiting for him to listen. His eyes snapped open. Team, he croaked, panic slicing through the fog. Sasuke. Adrenaline surged. He forced his body to move, muscles screaming in protest as he pushed himself upright. The room spun violently, red haze bleeding across his vision until he shoved his hair out of his face. The haze faded. Naruto froze. The room wasn't different. He was. Everything was too sharp, too clear. He could see tiny cracks in the wooden chair across the room, dust in the air, fibers in the blanket beneath his fingers. It made his head throb, vision straining to process too much information at once. He swayed and flopped backward onto the bed with a groan. Perfect timing. Kakashi stepped through the doorway, bowl in hand, pausing when he heard Naruto's pained noise. So, Kakashi said mildly, "You woke up." Naruto squinted at him and frowned. "Why do you look like that?" Kakashi blinked. "Like what?" Naruto rubbed at his eyes. Spots danced across his vision, except they didn't dance. They clung to Kakashi's body, glowing faintly. Reds, pale whites, even darker points that seemed to swallow light. He blinked again. They stayed. "That's annoying," Naruto muttered. Kakashi moved closer, setting the bowl down. Naruto watched the glowing marks shift with him, locked in place no matter how Kakashi moved. "Naruto," Kakashi said carefully, "are your eyes bothering you?" "Yeah," Naruto replied between spoonfuls of soup. "Everything's fine, but I keep seeing weird spots." "What kind of spots?" "You know those floaty things?" Naruto waved a hand vaguely. "Except these don't float. They stick to you, like someone painted you with glowy paint." Kakashi went very still. Naruto noticed and frowned. "Hey, you asked." A particularly bright red mark burned on Kakashi's shoulder. Naruto leaned forward without thinking and jabbed it, instinctively pushing a bit of chakra into the poke. Kakashi jerked. A sharp breath escaped him, body stiffening as something electric rippled through his chakra network. It didn't hurt. It resonated. What did you just do? Kakashi demanded, eyes locked onto Naruto with sudden intensity. Naruto recoiled slightly. I poked you? With a little chakra? You were ignoring me. Kakashi didn't answer immediately. His visible eye searched Naruto's face, lingered on his eyes. Naruto squirmed under the stare. Hey, what about Sasuke? Is he okay? And Sakura? And you, whoa. He slid right off the bed mid-rant, landing ungracefully on the floor. Kakashi sighed and helped him back up, expression unreadable. Naruto crossed his arms weakly. Well, Kakashi hesitated, then spoke slowly. I think, he said, choosing each word with care, that what happened to you wasn't an injury. Naruto's stomach dropped. Then what was it? Kakashi met his gaze. I believe, he said quietly, you've awakened a bloodline limit. The room went silent. Naruto stared. A what? Kakashi straightened, gravity settling into his posture. And if I'm right, his voice lowered, serious and wary. Then everything about how your body interacts with chakra has just changed. Naruto swallowed. Somewhere deep inside him, something old shifted. And listened. Naruto stared at Kakashi like his sensei had just insulted ramen. What the hell? He snapped. Stop dodging the question. If you can stand there looking all calm, then fine, you're okay. But what about Sasuke? Last time I saw him, he looked like a human pincushion. And Haku? Zabuza? Are they still here? Are they really coming to Konoha, or was that just? Kakashi sighed, long and tired, the kind of sigh that came from knowing there was no stopping this train once it started. I'm fine. Sasuke's fine. You'll see him in a minute. Haku and Zabuza are here, and you can ask them yourself, he said evenly. And no, Naruto, I'm not trying to distract you. I genuinely believe you've awakened a bloodline trait. Naruto's brow furrowed. And how'd you figure that? Instead of answering, Kakashi reached out, took Naruto by the wrist, and dragged him across the room. Hey, what are you? They stopped in front of a mirror. Naruto went silent. The red haze he'd thought was clinging to his vision wasn't in his eyes at all. It was on him. His hair was no longer just blonde. Near his scalp it still held its familiar color, but as it fell downward it darkened, bleeding into a deep crimson. The very tips were so dark they bordered on black. Worse, much worse, it was longer. Long enough to brush his shoulders. What? Naruto whispered. The hell? His bangs fell into his face now, grazing his cheeks. His whisker marks looked darker too, sharper, more pronounced. He leaned closer to the mirror, eyes narrowing, and froze. Whoa, fangs. Actual fangs. Not movie monster ridiculous, but unmistakably sharp. Long real. Please be fake, he muttered, lifting his hand. The second his fingers brushed them, pain flared and blood welled up. Damn it. He scanned the rest of himself. His body looked better, stronger, leaner. His pajamas hung just a little shorter than they should have. Yes, he thought automatically. Taller than the team. Then his eyes caught his reflection again. And this time, there was no avoiding it. Purple. Not entirely. Blue still lingered near the pupil, which had narrowed into a slit. But the dominant color was a rich, alien violet. Around the edges of his iris burned a thin ring of glowing red, like embers refusing to die. Naruto grabbed the mirror and yanked it closer. No, 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 he muttered. That's not purple. That's creative lighting. It stayed purple. Crap. A bloodline. That word echoed in his head. On one hand, awesome. A real ability. Something that wasn't borrowed, sealed, or whispered about behind his back. On the other hand, purple eyes. In combat, flowers were purple. Eggplants were purple. Barney was purple, and nobody feared Barney. Still, maybe this would change things. Maybe the village would finally look at him and see something else. Before he could spiral any deeper, the door burst open. Naruto! Sakura cried, rushing in and throwing her arms around his neck. His brain short-circuited. Then she pulled back and swung for his head. He ducked on instinct, easily. Huh, Naruto blinked. You're slower. Sakura shoved him back onto the bed anyway. You idiot. You're supposed to be resting. You almost died in your... She stopped. Her eyes locked onto his. The room might as well have vanished. Oh, she breathed. Naruto flushed. Hi. Sasuke stepped around her, annoyed, until he saw Naruto properly. The hair, the eyes, the presence. Something twisted uncomfortably in his chest, then settled lower, warm and unfamiliar. He met Naruto's gaze and held it. TCH, Sasuke muttered, looking away. Show off. Kakashi watched the exchange with a knowing eye, a faint smile hidden beneath his mask. The reaction confirmed his suspicion. Interesting, he thought. Very interesting. The mood shifted again as Zabuza and Haku entered the room. Naruto looked between them, eyes bright. So, Naruto said, you really don't remember me exploding? Sakura shuddered. You terrified us. Naruto grinned sheepishly. Sounds like me. He turned to Zabuza. So, about Konoha. Zabuza glanced at Haku. One look was enough. Yeah, Zabuza said. We'll come. Naruto's face lit up instantly. Yes. For a moment, everything felt right. But as Naruto laughed, Kakashi's gaze lingered on the faint red ring glowing in his eyes. Because bloodlines didn't awaken without reason. And whatever had answered Naruto that day on the bridge, it hadn't finished making itself known. Kakashi's eye curved into what passed for a smile. Sakura shook her head fondly, cheeks warm as she watched her teammates fall back into familiar chaos. Sasuke turned away with a scoff, arms crossed, though Kakashi caught the faintest hint of color at his ears. The moment didn't last. Inari burst through the door like a cannonball, launching himself straight at Naruto. Naruto barely had time to yelp before the kid latched on, peppering him with frantic questions. You were covered in blood. Are you really okay? Naruto puffed his chest out proudly. Totally fine. See, still breathing, still awesome. Nothing can keep me down, believe it. Inari didn't look convinced, but Naruto's grin was contagious. The tension in the room eased, laughter edging out fear. Eventually, the conversation drifted, inevitably, back to Naruto's eyes. To the spots. To the bloodline. Naruto tried, unsuccessfully, to sell his theory about late-blooming genes and totally normal DNA stuff. No one bought it. He tried asking if his eyes would go back to normal. He was ignored. Instead, a plan formed. A careful one. A scientific one, Kakashi claimed, with a glint in his eye Naruto didn't like at all. They would test it. Softly. Hey, why am I not allowed to vote on this? Naruto protested. Because, Kakashi said calmly, you're the variable. The decision was unanimous. Kakashi would be first. Naruto pointed out, again, that he'd only poked him earlier. No one cared. They moved to the clearing. Naruto stopped dead. The place looked like a battlefield after a natural disaster. Trees lay shattered, bark blackened. Leaves were scorched. And off to the left. Is that a crater? Naruto asked faintly. Yep, Sakura said sweetly. You exploded, Sasuke added. Naruto stared. Huh. Kakashi positioned himself on relatively intact ground and motioned Naruto forward. You mentioned 3 dominant colors, Kakashi said evenly. Red, white, black. Yeah, Naruto replied. Though the white's more like super hot red. Like forge fire hot. Good. Let's start with red. No chakra. Naruto hesitated, then gently pressed 2 fingers against a red mark on Kakashi's shoulder. Kakashi stiffened. A faint flush crept above his mask. Sensei? Naruto asked. You okay? You're kinda red. Kakashi nodded. Continue. Naruto tried again. Harder. Softer. A brush of fingers. A scratch. The red spot brightened. The others followed suit. Kakashi shifted, breath hitching almost imperceptibly. Naruto swallowed. This is supposed to be safe, right? A few snickers came from behind him. He experimented more, Rapid taps, slow pressure, even tracing the edge of the mark. Kakashi's breathing deepened. When Naruto finally added chakra, the reaction was immediate. Kakashi gasped. Whoa, sorry. Don't stop, Kakashi said quickly, then paused. I mean, continue. Zabuza barked out a laugh, sharp and knowing. By the time Naruto finished, Kakashi was visibly flushed and breathing harder than after a spar. Naruto backed away, hands raised. Sensei, maybe we should. Later, Kakashi muttered, waving him on. They moved to white. Naruto chose a spot on Kakashi's palm. The reaction was stronger, faster. Kakashi's legs actually gave out at one point, forcing him to sit. Sakura stared, stunned. Haku frowned, troubled. This isn't elemental. This isn't chakra control. This is something else. Naruto explained what he saw. Red everywhere, white in specific, private areas, black in fewer, precise locations. By the end, Kakashi was sitting, breathing hard. Zabuza laughed every time Kakashi made a noise he clearly didn't want to. Naruto tried again to call a break. Again, Kakashi refused. Sakura's mind raced. This didn't fit any known Kekkei Genkai. Not Hyuga. Not Uchiha. Not anything recorded. And yet, it's real. Sasuke watched in silence, conflicted. Impressive, yes, but impractical. No enemy would stand still. And still, jealousy curled in his chest. Not of Naruto's power, but of Kakashi, who clearly wasn't suffering. If it's not dangerous, Sasuke reasoned, why not test it on someone else? He clenched his fists. He could help Naruto train it better than Kakashi could. And in return, an even trade. Naruto's bloodline. His Sharingan. A fair exchange. Sasuke lifted his gaze, eyes narrowing with resolve. This power, whatever it was, wasn't going to stay a mystery for long. While everyone else was lost in their own thoughts, Naruto was growing increasingly agitated. Look, he snapped, waving his arms. There's only so much poking a person can take. You're clearly at your limit, Kakashi-sensei. Just take a break already. Kakashi exhaled slowly. Naruto, you only have one color left to test. I'll rest after that. And don't even think about holding back. I'll know. Naruto groaned. I never hold back, believe it. Grumbling, he turned his attention to one of the darker marks, the black ones. Compared to the others, it seemed heavier, quieter, like it absorbed light rather than reflected it. Fine, Naruto muttered. Last one. He pressed against the spot, starting gently, no chakra. Kakashi's reaction was immediate and completely different. Where the red and white marks had caused his chakra to spike and his body to react sharply, this did the opposite. Kakashi felt something drain away, like tension being released all at once. When Naruto added chakra, the effect intensified, steady, suppressing, grounding. Then Naruto poked harder. Kakashi stiffened and raised a hand sharply. Stop. Naruto blinked. See, I told you. I just figured it out, Kakashi interrupted. Eyes sharp now. The black marks, they cancel the effects of the others. Naruto froze. What? The red stimulates. Kakashi continued calmly. The white amplifies. And the black, he exhaled, feeling his chakra settle, neutralizes, suppresses. Naruto scratched his head. Okay, cool, but what does that actually mean? How am I supposed to use it if I don't even know what I'm seeing? Before Kakashi could answer, Zabuza let out a sudden bark of laughter. So it is what I thought, he said, smirking. Kakashi nodded. Yeah. Zabuza laughed harder. Of all people, him. Hey, Naruto protested. What's that supposed to mean? Kakashi's eye curved into a smile. Naruto, there's a reason you're known for being unpredictable. Sakura crossed her arms, glaring. Someone explain already. Naruto leaned forward, eyes locked on Kakashi. Yeah, tell me. Kakashi paused, choosing his words carefully. The marks you're seeing, he said slowly, aren't random. Naruto swallowed. Okay, they're points where chakra, nerves, and physical sensitivity intersect, Kakashi continued. Every person has them, but most shinobi can't perceive them directly. Naruto blinked. So, Kakashi finished. Your bloodline allows you to see and influence those points. The clearing went silent. Sakura's eyes widened. You mean pressure points? Kakashi clarified smoothly. Some heightened awareness or physical response. Some overwhelm the senses. Others shut reactions down completely. Naruto stared at his hands. So I've basically got built-in chakra vision for weak points? Zabuza smirked. In a manner of speaking. Sasuke frowned, mind racing. That's terrifyingly useful. Naruto looked up slowly. That's actually kind of awesome. Kakashi nodded. In combat, medical applications, interrogation, disabling opponents without killing them, it's incredibly versatile. Naruto's grin slowly spread. Well, he said, eyes gleaming with new excitement. Guess I really am full of surprises. Deep inside him, something stirred again, not laughing this time. Watching. Waiting. Because now that Naruto knew what he could see, the real test would be what he chose to do with it. Naruto tied the last knot on his pack harder than necessary. This is unfair. The bridge was finished. Tazuna was celebrating. Tomorrow morning, they'd leave Wave behind and head back to Konoha. That should have made him happy. Instead, it left him restless. A week. An entire week of training, arguing, experimenting, and fighting with Sakura, Kakashi, Zabuza, Haku, and especially Sasuke. And he still didn't know what to do with his bloodline in a way that felt right. Sure, they'd found uses. Kakashi liked to call one of them temporary neuromuscular destabilization. Naruto called it jelly legs. He could weaken an opponent until their knees buckled, scramble their senses long enough to create openings, or, somehow, cause catastrophic nosebleeds no matter where he hit them, provided he used the right amount of chakra. White spots were the easiest. Black spots shut everything down. Red spots were problematic. Very problematic. Haku had helped more than anyone. His precision, his calm explanations, the way he understood how small touches could create massive effects. It all translated surprisingly well. Naruto's aim had improved faster than it should have. Too fast. At some point, Naruto stopped seeing the spots altogether. He just knew where they were. It felt like a new sense, half sight, half sound, mixed with something deeper. An instinct. He could tell how much chakra to use, how to shape it, sharp, smooth, dull, fuzzy, to get exactly the reaction he wanted. Which was great, except for what the reaction was. The upside of leaving tomorrow was simple. No more testing for a while. No more scientific poking. No more weird looks. No more Kakashi smiling like he knew something Naruto really didn't want to know. And no more thinking about what the council would say. That thought made Naruto pause. Kakashi had warned him. Quietly. Seriously. Not everyone in Konoha would see this bloodline as harmless or funny. That warning had come the same night Kakashi finally explained everything. Earlier that week, Naruto had stared at Kakashi like the man had just rewritten reality. What? Kakashi nodded far too calmly. Erogenous zones. Naruto's face drained of color so fast, it was almost impressive. The red and white points heightened physical sensitivity. Kakashi continued. The black points suppress it. Silence. Naruto's brain rebooted. You mean, he yelled, the big amazing bloodline I get. A walking embarrassment. Kakashi tilted his head. I'm curious how you'll adapt it for combat. You can't even think of a combat use. Well, Kakashi said thoughtfully, distraction is a battlefield advantage. Stop talking. Kakashi, entirely unbothered, waved cheerfully and walked off. Zabuza laughed. Haku looked concerned. Naruto collapsed where he stood. Sakura crouched beside him, hesitant. Naruto, it's not that bad. I mean, okay, it's kind of bad, but... My hands, Naruto whispered. What? My hands, he said louder, staring at them like they were traitors. They just... Sasuke crossed his arms. There's nothing wrong with them, dope. Naruto looked up. eyes wide and haunted. I just accidentally turned Kakashi-sensei on, he shouted. And he let me. Silence. No one had an answer. Back in the present, Naruto zipped his bag shut and flopped onto the bed with a groan. Great, he thought. I finally get something special. And it's this. Still as embarrassing as it was, part of him couldn't deny it. This ability was his. Not borrowed. Not sealed. Not something whispered about in fear. And somehow, he'd figure it out. Because that's what Naruto Uzumaki always did. Tomorrow, they'd return to Konoha. And whether the village liked it or not, Naruto was bringing something new back with him. Naruto lay still, listening. The house had settled into that deep, midnight quiet where even the walls seemed to breathe softly. Sasuke's steady rhythm came from the other bed. Sakura's faint breathing drifted from the next room. Somewhere farther off, Kakashi snored in a way that suggested he'd deny it in the morning. Zabuza's presence was heavy and constant, while Haku's breathing stayed light, alert even in rest. Then Naruto heard something else. Bare feet. Careful. Hesitant. His senses, sharper than they'd ever been, traced the sound easily. Inari wasn't asleep. The boy was moving down the hall, slow, cautious steps aimed straight toward Naruto and Sasuke's room. What's he doing up this late? Naruto closed his eyes and forced his breathing to even out. If Inari wanted him awake, he'd call his name. If not, Naruto would find out soon enough. The door creaked open. Inari slipped inside, holding his breath like the darkness itself might give him away. He padded closer to Naruto's bed and stopped. Naruto stayed still. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a small, uncertain hand brushed Naruto's cheek. Naruto almost flinched. It wasn't rough or sneaky. It was gentle, like someone checking if a dream was real. Inari's fingers traced along the familiar whisker marks, hesitant and slow. Then they moved into Naruto's hair, carefully combing through the longer strands as if reassured by their warmth. Naruto's chest tightened. He's scared, Naruto realized. Not weird. Not sneaky. Just scared. Inari shifted closer to the bed, small hands still fidgeting in Naruto's hair like it anchored him there. Naruto felt a pang of something he couldn't quite name. Protective, heavy, and sharp all at once. Still, this couldn't go on. Naruto stirred deliberately, rubbing at his eyes and rolling onto his back with a soft groan. Inari gasped and pulled his hands back as if burned. Naruto cracked one eye open, putting on his best groggy look. Inari, what are you doing up so late? The boy froze, face turning red instantly. He stared at the floor, fingers twisting together. I just, he stammered, words tangling. I couldn't sleep. Naruto sat up slowly, careful not to startle him. Bad dreams. Inari nodded, barely visible in the dim light. About the bridge. And the men. And when you were hurt. Naruto's expression softened. Oh, he said quietly. He scooted over and patted the edge of the bed. Come on. Sit. Inari hesitated, then climbed up, perching awkwardly at the edge. Naruto draped a blanket around both of them without thinking, the motion easy and familiar. I'm okay, Naruto said softly. See? Still here. Still breathing. Still annoying. Inari snorted despite himself. That's my job, Naruto added. The boy's shoulders relaxed just a little. They sat like that for a moment, the dark no longer so heavy. Inari glanced up at Naruto's face, then quickly looked away. Your eyes, he murmured. They were really scary before. Naruto smiled, small and honest. Yeah, they scared me too. But they're normal again, Inari said, peeking back. That means you're gonna be okay, right? Naruto didn't answer right away. I don't know, he admitted. But I'm gonna try. That seemed to be enough. Inari yawned, the tension finally draining out of him. Naruto waited until the boy's breathing evened out again before carefully easing him back toward the door. I'll walk you back, Naruto whispered. As they moved through the quiet house, Naruto felt it again. That faint pressure behind his eyes. Not pain, not heat, Awareness. Something inside him stirred, attentive and patient, like it was listening to the dark just as closely as he was. Naruto paused in the hallway, one hand resting on Inari's shoulder, and glanced toward the forest beyond the walls. Tomorrow, they'd leave. And whatever waited for him in Konoha, it already knew he was coming. I had a nightmare, Inari whispered, voice small. And I was wondering, He trailed off again. Naruto tilted his head, puzzled. The way Inari hesitated, tripped over his words. It reminded Naruto of someone from the academy. Shy, earnest, afraid of being told no. The comparison slipped away before Naruto could place it. It's okay, Naruto said gently. You can say it. Inari swallowed hard, face turning red. He stared at the floor like it might swallow him whole. I was hoping I could maybe, he muttered, stay here tonight. Naruto blinked. Stay here? For a split second, his brain refused to cooperate. Sleep here? With him? Inari, mortified by Naruto's silence, immediately backtracked. It's okay if not. I mean, I shouldn't have asked. I'll just. He turned to leave. Wait. Naruto blurted. The word escaped before he had time to overthink it. Inari froze mid-step. Sure, Naruto said, scratching the back of his head. If it helps. Silence hung between them. Then Inari turned back slowly, a small, relieved smile breaking through his nerves. Naruto scooted over and lifted the blanket without thinking, giving Inari space. The boy slipped in carefully, stiff at first, murmuring a quiet good night. Night, Naruto replied. Only after closing his eyes did the realization hit him. That nightmare thing was totally an excuse, wasn't it? Naruto sighed internally. He didn't feel threatened. He didn't feel angry. Just confused. Inari hadn't been acting like this before. Or maybe Naruto just hadn't noticed. Inari followed him everywhere lately. During watch duty. Around the house. Always nearby. Always looking at him like Naruto was something solid in a world that kept falling apart. Guess I'd cling too, Naruto thought, if someone pulled me out of that kind of darkness. He felt Inari shift beside him, still awake. Naruto slowed his breathing deliberately, pretending to fall asleep to make the kid more comfortable. It worked. Inari relaxed, inching closer, not invasive, just seeking warmth. He tucked himself under Naruto's arm, head resting lightly against Naruto's shoulder, arm draped loosely across his chest. Naruto stiffened for half a second, then softened. Guess this is happening, he muttered quietly. Inari's breathing evened out soon after. Naruto glanced down at him, really looked. The kid's brow had finally smoothed, fear gone, a faint blush still lingering even in sleep. He looked safe. Naruto adjusted the blanket and stared at the ceiling. Everyone's acting weird, he thought. But maybe I'm just the first thing that didn't disappear on them. That thought followed him into sleep. Somewhere at the edge of consciousness, Naruto felt eyes on him. Cold, sharp, watching. He didn't see the crimson patterns spinning silently in the dark. Didn't notice the figure standing rigid in the doorway, jaw clenched, fists shaking. Stupid kid, a voice muttered under its breath. Stupid dope. Naruto stirred. Team, he mumbled automatically, half asleep. The presence vanished. But the tension didn't. Because when morning came, things were going to change. Ugh, morning already. Naruto lay there for a few seconds longer, eyes closed, mind already racing. They'd be back in Konoha soon. That meant the council, the village, questions, stares, decisions, and he still didn't have a real use for his bloodline. Great timing, universe. He shifted and froze. Something warm tightened around him. Not blanket warm, person warm. Naruto's brain caught up all at once. Inari. Oh, right. The kid. The weird behavior. The staying the night. The very bad decision-making on Naruto's part. He carefully tried to slide out of bed. Didn't work. Inari's fingers were fisted in his shirt like Naruto was the last solid thing in the world. When Naruto tried to pry them loose, Inari only tightened his grip and, somehow, ended up wrapping both arms around Naruto's stomach. "You've got to be kidding me," Naruto muttered. He checked the time. 5:30 a.m. Too early to wake anyone normal. Too late to pretend nothing was happening. Options ran through his head at lightning speed and died just as fast. Kakashi? Absolutely not. Zabuza? He'd laugh himself sick. Sakura? He valued his life. Haku? On the roof. Yelling would wake everyone. Sasuke? Naruto grimaced. Team it is. 1.5 hours later. Naruto trudged at the back of the group, rubbing the fading bruises around his eye and jaw. Sakura's fists had been thorough. He'd endured an hour and a half of death glares, yelling, and one very convincing lecture about appropriate behavior. All while Sasuke glared like Naruto had committed some unforgivable crime against nature itself. "I literally just slept," Naruto thought bitterly. "Why is this my fault?" The swelling was already going down, his healing kicking in fast, but the black eye was stubborn. "Great. I look weak." "Not weak." "What?" Naruto blurted out, earning confused looks from the others. "A black eye makes you look tough. Females like it. Males notice it. Everyone assumes you fought someone strong. Perfect image. Why would I care if guys notice? And girls? I'm not even." Naruto stopped himself from thinking about eye colors. "I know exactly what you're thinking. Damn it. And I like guys and girls, so trust me. The eye stays. I'll let it heal before Konoha." Naruto frowned. "Wait. Your voice just changed." "No, it didn't." "Yes, it did. It sounded more feminine just now. Perspective is funny. Now it sounds masculine again." Naruto slowed his steps slightly. "Do I have more than one voice in my head?" "Nope. Just me. Plenty of space up here, though." Naruto could practically hear the grin. "Great. You're doing well, by the way." "At what?" "Not panicking." Naruto snorted internally. "I called you a fuzzball earlier." The voice went very, very quiet. "What did you just call me?" "A fuzzball?" A pause. "Why?" "Because you sound fuzzy. Like if a cat could talk." Another pause. Then, "I am not a cat." "Good. Cats suck. Sharp claws. Mean attitude. And I am not a dog either, before you try that next." "So you're an animal?" "Obviously." "Okay, wolf." "Didn't I just say?" There was a subtle shift. Not in the voice. In the air. Naruto's steps slowed. His senses prickled. The same way they had on the bridge. The same way they did right before something important happened. The voice didn't snap this time. It lowered. "Be careful, Naruto." Careful about what? For the first time since it had appeared, the voice hesitated. "About knowing what I am." Naruto swallowed. Ahead of him, the road to Konoha stretched long and familiar. Behind him, something unseen walked closer. And deep inside him, the fuzzball, whatever it truly was, showed the faintest hint of teeth. Well, Naruto thought sourly as he walked. Wolves wouldn't want to be mistaken for dogs. You know, wild wolf versus mild mutt. Makes sense. The voice in his head exploded. "I am not a wolf either. Honestly. You brat. How limited is your imagination? Think dignified, refined, elegant, intelligent, sleek, something with class. And for the last time, I am not a dog, not a cat, not a hyena, and definitely not a wolf." Naruto winced. "Great," he muttered internally. "Now I've got a mystery voice with standards." He glanced at the sun. 11:45. 4.5 hours. Naruto realized slowly. "I've been arguing with my own head for 4.5 hours. Fantastic." He pinched the bridge of his nose, immediately regretting it as his bruised eye throbbed in protest. Morning memories came flooding back whether he wanted them to or not. Yeah, that disaster. He still wasn't sure how it escalated so fast. He'd woken Sasuke, rudely, because desperate times called for desperate chair throwing. Sasuke, predictably, had insulted him. Inari had clung tighter. Sasuke had grabbed Inari's arm. And then, crunch, Inari had bitten Sasuke. Hard. Naruto would go to his grave insisting that laughing at that exact moment was not a conscious decision. Everything after that blurred into chaos. Sasuke swearing under his breath, Sakura waking up, Naruto and Sasuke rolling off the bed, grappling, growling insults. Naruto clenched his jaw as the memory sharpened. Sasuke pinning him, twisting his arm, whispering insults directly into his ear like a psychopath. Naruto wrenching free, shoving, losing balance. And then, that. Stomach to stomach, chest to chest, forehead to forehead, lips to. Naruto groaned quietly and buried his face in his hands as he walked. He could still remember the split second of stunned silence. Sakura frozen in the doorway. Sasuke not letting go. The absolute horror as Naruto realized he couldn't move his hands. And then Sakura's scream. The rest had been pain, yelling, humiliation, and breakfast eaten under intense scrutiny. Naruto sighed. I'm never living that down, am I? Nope. Naruto flinched. You're enjoying this way too much. I warned you about attention. Oh, shut up. He was just beginning to spiral again when Kakashi's voice cut through his thoughts. Why don't we stop for lunch? Naruto blinked, looking up. The group slowed, turning toward a shaded clearing beside the road. He hadn't even noticed how far they'd walked. Lunch, Naruto echoed. His stomach answered for him with a loud growl. Sakura sighed. Sasuke scoffed. Kakashi smiled behind his mask. As they settled down, Naruto dropped onto a log and leaned back, staring up at the sky through the leaves. Between the bruises, the bloodline, the voice, the looks, everything felt like it was stacking up. But one thing was becoming very, very clear. Whatever had awakened inside him, whatever was whispering in his head, whatever his bloodline truly was, it wasn't done causing trouble. And Naruto Uzumaki had the sinking feeling that Konoha was about to find out the hard way. Don't do it. I'm not going to do anything. Then don't say it. Naruto smirked to himself as he walked. Oh, I'm definitely saying it. Come on. Sakura probably hates me now. Sasuke's been brooding like a storm cloud, and only he and I really know what happened. I've earned this. You already told everyone what happened because he went all silent and dramatic. The voice sighed. Just don't yell it. Fine. Whatever. When everyone started unpacking their lunches, Naruto spoke. Casual, innocent, just loud enough. I thought Sasuke already had a bite. The effect was immediate. Sasuke froze mid-motion, fist clenching. Naruto noticed the faint red mark on his hand glow just a little. Kakashi's visible eye widened. Zabuza barked once, sharp and amused. Sakura stared like Naruto had just confessed to murder. Naruto's grin spread despite the tug on his bruises. Dope. Yeez? Naruto sang. What did you just say? Oh, nothing, Naruto shrugged. Just an observation. Sasuke's eye twitched. Naruto braced himself. Kakashi laughed. Zabuza joined in. And Sasuke lunged. Naruto bolted instantly. Laughter and Kakashi's lazy warning, don't go too far, trailing behind him as Sasuke chased with murder in his eyes. Time skip. They reached the outskirts of the small village by late afternoon. Naruto rubbed his jaw, wincing as his fingers brushed the bruise Sasuke had managed to land. Not hard, but precise. Typical. I feel like I forgot something important, Naruto thought. Crap. His bloodline. He hadn't thought about it at all. Okay, he told himself. Think. Strength. Different kinds of strength. They entered the village proper, and Naruto noticed the stairs, longer than usual. It took him a second to realize why. Two masked shinobi. One with a massive sword. A pretty white-haired boy. Pink hair. Broody emo. And him, with red-tipped hair and a black eye. Yeah, that'd do it. A hand landed on his shoulder. Kakashi, we'll drop our things at the inn, get dinner, and head out in the morning, Kakashi said. I assumed you weren't listening earlier. Hey, sensei, Naruto asked. Why stop here? We could reach Konoha by morning. We could, Kakashi agreed. But we're not in a rush. And I figured you'd appreciate more time to think about your bloodline. Naruto laughed nervously. Why, yeah, totally thinking. Kakashi hummed. I've thought of a few uses myself. Naruto lit up. Really? None that would impress the council. Naruto deflated. But, Kakashi added, have you thought of what area it could expand? Something the village already values. Naruto frowned. Strength? Which kind? Naruto slowed. That was the right question. Later, seated at dinner with a pad of paper and a pen, Naruto barely touched his food. He wrote, crossed out, rewrote. Strength wasn't just punching harder. It was numbers, intelligence, community, healing, order, information. Information. That thought lingered. By the time they returned to the inn, Naruto excused himself and wandered the village, list in hand, muttering quietly. Strengths. Military/defense. Fighting ability. Numbers/size. Economy. Community. Morality. Religion. Medicine/healing. Organization/government. Technology. Intelligence. He stared at the list. My bloodline can't fight like the Sharingan, he whispered. Can't scout like the Byakugan. But it could read people. Not their minds. Their bodies. Their reactions. Their tells. Naruto stopped walking. His breath caught. Interrogation. Truth. Negotiation. Psychological warfare. Medical diagnostics. His grip tightened on the paper. Strength didn't always mean force. Sometimes, it meant knowing exactly where to press. Deep inside him, the voice stirred again, quiet this time. Now you're thinking like a fox. Naruto smiled slowly, eyes glinting. Yeah, he murmured. I think I finally am. Naruto blinked. Look like me. The girl who'd spoken, taller than the rest, dark hair tied back, gave him an apologetic smile. You stand out. That's all. Stand out how? Naruto asked, genuinely confused. I mean, yeah, my pants are a little short and my shirt's kinda tight, but... That earned a fresh wave of giggles. No. Another girl said quickly, waving her hands. Not like that. It's your hair, the youngest blurted out, then clapped her hands over her mouth. I mean, sorry. Naruto instinctively reached up, fingers brushing the longer strands, the red-darkened tips catching the late sunlight. My hair. And your eyes, the older girl added, watching him carefully. They're intense. Naruto stiffened slightly. My eyes. They're blue, one of the girls said, then tilted her head. But not just blue. It's like they see you. The others nodded, murmuring agreement. Naruto's heart skipped, not in fear, but in recognition. They weren't staring because he looked dangerous. They weren't staring because he looked strange. They were staring because they felt noticed. Oh, Naruto said softly. The girls seemed to relax when he smiled. Really smiled, wide and honest. A few of them blushed outright. Sorry if I made you uncomfortable, he said. I'm not from around here. That part was obvious, the oldest said with a laugh. You talk like a leaf ninja. Naruto scratched the back of his head. Guilty. She hesitated, then added, more serious. You've got presence. People feel it. That's why they're staring. Presence. Naruto thanked them, waved awkwardly, and moved on, his thoughts racing faster with every step. Presence, influence, reaction. He stopped under a lantern and flipped his notebook open again. Intelligence, information from people. He underlined it twice. My bloodline doesn't read minds, he realized. It reads responses. People's tells. Their nerves. Their reactions when they're lying, scared, excited, hiding something. Interrogation. Negotiation. Detecting deception. Crowd control, not by force, but by pressure. Naruto's breath caught. That's it. Not torture. Not manipulation for pleasure. But truth. If I can tell how someone reacts, I can tell when they're lying. When they're afraid. When they're hiding something important. Villages don't survive on strength alone. They survive on information. Naruto's grip tightened on the notebook, excitement buzzing through his veins. Not the chaotic, burning kind, but sharp and clear. This wasn't embarrassing. This wasn't useless. This was leverage. As he turned back toward the inn, the voice in his head stirred again, quiet, approving. You're finally seeing it. Naruto smiled to himself. Yeah, he murmured. Guess I am. Tomorrow, he'd walk into Konoha not as a problem, but as an asset. And for the first time since the bridge, Naruto Uzumaki felt ready for whatever waited behind those gates. Do I look strange? Naruto asked, tilting his head and meeting the older girl's eyes honestly. She flushed instantly and turned away. Great. Rude again, Naruto thought. The youngest girl blurted, no, not strange, just really, really see you. A hand clamped over her mouth. She meant different, the girl his age said quickly, eyes darting. Really, really different. The third girl nodded, arms crossed. Yeah, different. Naruto frowned. Different how? My hair. He tugged a red-tipped strand between his fingers. I thought it looked okay. It's not that, the older girl said quickly, then stopped herself, cheeks warming. Your hair's, it's nice. Before Naruto could process that, she stepped closer, shorter by a hand's breadth, and, without warning, ran both hands into his hair. Naruto stiffened. Hey. Her eyes widened. She gasped, and then her knees buckled. Whoa. Naruto caught her under the arms before she hit the ground. Panic spiked. What did I do? The other two rushed in, trying to help, but her fingers were still tangled in Naruto's hair like anchors. What did you do to her? The oldest demanded, sharp and protective. I didn't do anything. Naruto protested. She just grabbed my hair. The two girls tried to peel her fingers free. They paused. Why'd you stop? Naruto asked, already uncomfortable with how many people were staring. They didn't answer. The oldest and the third girl stepped in to help, and froze too, hands still in Naruto's hair. Naruto swallowed. Could you maybe not do that? Too late. The girl in Naruto's arms jolted awake, stared up at him with a dazed smile, and squealed. Loudly. The others squealed too. And then, somehow, Naruto was being glomped from all sides. He barely stayed upright for a heartbeat before going down carefully, trying not to squish anyone. The moment he could, he wriggled free, backed away, and bowed repeatedly. I'm really sorry. I don't know what happened. Sorry for bothering you, but he ran. A few blocks later, Naruto bent over, hands on his knees, breathing hard. Okay, he panted. That was not normal. He checked his list again, determined to test things quietly. Inside a bookstore, he grabbed a science book. 5 minutes in, nothing clicked, same as ever. He flipped ahead, skimmed a section, moved on. Heh, Naruto froze. No. Oh no. He realized that he could recall every detail of the section he'd just skimmed. You've got to be kidding me, he whispered. Selective memory? Patterns and relevance, the voice replied smugly. Naruto closed the book, face hot. That's unfair. He left quickly, especially when he spotted an entire shelf of orange novels, and wandered until he helped a shopkeeper with a crate. His shirt tore, front and back. People stared again. Nope, Naruto muttered, ducking into a clothing shop. He grabbed a plain black tee and headed to the register, then stopped. The clerk's eyes gleamed. Too much. She was around the counter in a blink, gripping his bicep. Why don't you look around? We've got a special today. I just need this, Naruto said. Oh, don't worry, she chirped. Special discount. For you. 10 minutes later, Naruto stood blinking with a bag full of clothes, a receipt, and complimentary boxers. 80%, he whispered. Tell your friends, she sang. Naruto fled, dropped the bags at the inn, earning a long look from Zabuza, then slipped into a small art gallery to breathe. Most pieces blurred together. One didn't. Dark tones, bursts of color that moved when he focused. Eyes hidden in shadow, birds woven into chaos. It felt honest. He bought it. Back at the inn, Naruto spread his list on the bed and added notes, hands steady now. Intelligence information. Detect reactions. Identify pressure points, emotional/physical. Truth verification, lying tells. Negotiation leverage. Crowd influence, nonviolent. He leaned back, exhaling. I don't control people, he realized. I read them. That mattered. A lot. Outside, the village hummed. Inside, something in Naruto finally settled. He wasn't a problem to hide. He was a tool the village didn't know it needed yet. And tomorrow, he'd prove it. Naruto didn't stop running until the inn came into view. He vaulted down from the rooftops, landed a little harder than usual, and staggered a step before catching himself. His heart wasn't racing from exertion, it was racing from clarity. Okay, he muttered, pushing open the door and slipping inside before anyone could spot him pacing like a lunatic in the street. The girls' voices echoed in his head, not their teasing, not the giggles, but the words beneath them. Ninja are trained to bear pain, but are they trained against pleasure? Even the toughest ninja couldn't keep their senses against that. Naruto collapsed onto the edge of the bed and stared at his hands. All this time, he'd been trying to force his bloodline into the same box as everyone else's. Combat, scouting, raw power. That wasn't it. This wasn't about overpowering an enemy. It was about control. Not control like puppets or domination, but control of situations. Pressure without bruises. Breakdowns without blood. Truth without blades. A ninja village didn't just need fighters. It needed interrogators who didn't torture, negotiators who didn't threaten, peacekeepers who could stop violence before it started. If someone couldn't focus, if their emotions betrayed them, if their body reacted before their mind could lie, then secrets came out. Naruto's eyes narrowed, violet flickering briefly before settling back to blue. I don't need to hurt anyone, he whispered. I just need to make them lose their balance. Now you're thinking like a fox, the voice said approvingly. Naruto snorted. Yeah, don't get smug. He stood abruptly and headed for the door. Kakashi-sensei, he muttered. You better still be awake. Kakashi was awake. Of course he was. Naruto found him on the inn's balcony, leaning against the railing with a book in hand that Naruto very deliberately refused to identify. Kakashi glanced up, sensing him instantly. You look like someone who just tripped over an idea. I figured it out, Naruto said, breathless. Kakashi's visible eye sharpened. Figured what out? My bloodline. How it helps the village. How it keeps the council off my back. That got Kakashi's full attention. He closed the book slowly. Go on. Naruto hesitated, then spoke fast, before doubt could catch him. I can break enemy focus without injury. I can tell when someone's lying because their reactions give them away. I can disrupt coordination, morale, even intent, without killing, without torture. I can do interrogations that don't leave scars. Crowd control that doesn't escalate. Negotiations where no one walks away with blood on their hands. Silence stretched. Then Kakashi chuckled, low and impressed. You're dangerous, he said mildly. Naruto bristled. That's not. In the best way, Kakashi finished. Because what you're describing isn't battlefield strength. He stepped closer. It's political strength. Naruto swallowed. If you frame it right, Kakashi continued, the council won't see a problem. They'll see a deterrent. A stabilizer. A tool that prevents wars instead of winning them. Naruto's chest tightened. So, I won't die. Kakashi snorted. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Then he smiled, really smiled. But for the first time, he said, you're walking into Konoha with something they can't afford to lose. Naruto let out a shaky breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Tomorrow, the gates would open. Tomorrow, the village would look at him and see something new. And somewhere deep inside, the fox laughed softly, already anticipating the chaos to come. Naruto's fingers tightened around the kunai. The memory cut off there, clean and sharp, like a door slamming shut. Sakura, he muttered, rubbing the side of his jaw on instinct. Even though there was no pain here. No body, really. Just him. The sewer was still. Too still. So this isn't a dream, he realized slowly. And it's not the real world either. He looked down at himself again. Dry now. No puddle. No damp chill. Just the echo of dripping water and the hum of something vast beneath his feet. I passed out, Naruto said. Which means, his gaze drifted to Tunnel C again, the red one. The old one. The one that felt like the voice. Took you long enough, kid. Naruto flinched, spinning around. The voice didn't come from behind him. It came from everywhere. So this is you, Naruto said quietly. This sewer. This place. Crude metaphor, the voice replied, amused. But effective. Naruto swallowed. Am I inside my head? Inside your seal. The words carried weight. Gravity. Naruto's breath hitched. The fox. There it is. A ripple passed through the red-lit tunnel, shadows stretching and pulling like living things. Naruto didn't see a body yet, only presence. Vast. Patient. Watching. So, Naruto said, forcing his voice steady. You dragged me here because Sakura punched me? A low, rumbling chuckle echoed through the tunnels. No, she just knocked you loose. Loose? You were circling the answer. I got tired of waiting. Naruto frowned. You've been helping me? Observing you. The voice sharpened slightly, testing whether you were worth helping. That stung more than Naruto expected. And the shadows in Tunnel C shifted, pulling back just enough for Naruto to feel eyes on him. Ancient, burning, calculating. You didn't break. Naruto blinked. You didn't abuse the power. Didn't force it. Didn't revel in it. You questioned it. You worried about consequences. The presence leaned closer. That makes you dangerous in the right way. Naruto exhaled slowly. So what are the tunnels? The pressure eased, just a little. Choices. Tunnel A pulsed faintly blue. What you were. Lonely. Small. Determined. The boy who survived on stubborn hope. Tunnel B shimmered violet. What you're becoming. Change. Conflict. Growth that hurt. Tunnel C burned red. What you carry. Rage. Survival. Power that had ended nations. Naruto stared at them, heart pounding. And if I pick one, you already have. Naruto looked down at the kunai in his hand. Without fully realizing it, he'd carved a shallow mark into the stone, right at the edge of Tunnel C. I don't want to be swallowed by you, Naruto said. And I don't want to run from you either. The presence stilled. I want to use you, Naruto continued. Not your rage. Your truth. Silence stretched. Then, laughter. Deep. Genuine. Dangerous. You're audacious. Naruto grinned faintly. I get that a lot. The shadows receded further now, revealing the massive outline of bars. Iron seals stretching into darkness beyond sight. Behind them, something enormous shifted. Very well, Naruto Uzumaki. The name carried weight here. Recognition. Walk the red tunnel when you're ready. Learn what you can endure. But understand this. Once you do, there is no pretending you are just a boy anymore. The ground trembled. Naruto tightened his grip on the kunai and took one step toward Tunnel C. I stopped pretending a long time ago. The sewer shook violently, and Naruto felt himself being pulled upward, ripped from the red glow. Naruto gasped, eyes snapping open. The ceiling of the inn swam into focus. Voices shouted. Someone grabbed his shoulders. Naruto. Kakashi's voice cut through the haze. Wake up. Naruto sucked in a breath, heart hammering, the echo of laughter still ringing in his ears. Behind his closed eyelids. For just a moment, red eyes opened, and this time they were watching back. Naruto stared at Sakura, not in the stunned, clueless way he usually did, but in a quiet, recalibrating way, like his mind was sliding pieces into new places whether he wanted it to or not. Wait, he said slowly. You punched me, because you thought Sasuke got the clothes. Sakura crossed her arms, cheeks still faintly pink. It's not like that. Those clothes aren't cheap. At all. And then I saw the receipt and realized you got them for basically nothing, and, well. She trailed off. Naruto blinked. Once. Twice. That's the dumbest reason I've ever been punched, he said finally. Sasuke huffed from the doorway. You say that like it hasn't happened before. Naruto ignored him and looked back at Sakura. You could have just asked. I did, she snapped back. With my fist. Naruto sighed deeply and scrubbed his face with both hands. Great. Fantastic. So my clothes are ash, my eye is purple. Again, and I wake up half naked in front of everyone. Kakashi coughed politely into his fist. To be fair, Naruto, you were unconscious. Changing you was a medical decision. Zabuza snorted. And an entertaining one. Naruto shot him a glare. You're not helping. Haku smiled gently. You do look more composed now. Naruto paused. Do I? Sakura hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, you do. That made him uneasy. He rubbed the back of his neck. Look, I get it. I know orange isn't exactly stealthy, but burning my stuff without asking still kinda sucks. Sakura bowed her head. I'm sorry. Really? Naruto studied her for a moment, then shrugged. Fine. Truce. But I'm keeping some orange. Sasuke smirked. You'll regret that. Naruto grinned back. Worth it. Something shifted in the room. Not loud, not obvious, but real. The tension eased, replaced with something closer to balance. And that's when Naruto felt it again. That subtle pull behind his eyes. The sense. He frowned slightly, focusing, not on the people, but on the space between them. Sakura's relief. Sasuke's guarded curiosity. Kakashi's quiet calculation. Zabuza's amusement. Haku's concern. It wasn't overwhelming. It was readable. Naruto swallowed. So, he said carefully, Kakashi-sensei. Yes. When I got knocked out, Naruto began. Did I say anything? Or do anything weird? Kakashi's eye sharpened. Why? Naruto hesitated. He remembered the tunnels. The colors. The red presence watching him without blinking. I think I met the fox, he said quietly. The room went still. Not shocked. Not panicked. Just alert. Zabuza straightened slightly. Haku's eyes softened. Sasuke turned fully toward him. Kakashi studied Naruto for a long moment before speaking. And Naruto exhaled. It didn't feel like a threat. Not exactly. More like a warning. And an offer. Sasuke scoffed. You're telling us this now? Naruto met his gaze evenly. Yeah, because I think it's connected to my bloodline. That wiped the smirk off Sasuke's face. Kakashi nodded slowly. Then we'll proceed carefully. Naruto clenched his fists, not in fear, but resolve. I'm done being dragged along by stuff I don't understand, he said. If this power is mine, then I decide how it's used. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Sakura smiled, small, but sincere. That sounds like you. Naruto smiled back. And somewhere deep inside, behind seals and iron and ancient rage, something old stirred again, not laughing this time. Watching. Naruto didn't remember hitting the floor. One moment, he was standing there with his shirt lifted, violet light coiling beneath his skin like living ink. And the next, he was falling. Not physically. Not the kind where you flail and hit something solid. This was the kind of fall where the world simply lets go of you. When awareness returned, it did so slowly. Too slowly. Naruto felt suspended. No cold. No warmth. No weight. Just the sensation of existing without a body. Again, he muttered, or tried to. The words didn't echo. They didn't even sound. They were just there. Then the light came. Not the sickly yellow of the sewer. Not the dim glow of the tunnels. This was purple. Deep. Saturated. Endless. The spiral was everywhere now. Vast and enormous, stretching outward like a galaxy carved into space. Lines of chakra flowed through it like rivers of light. Blue fading into violet. Violet bleeding into red at the edges. And at the center, bars. Naruto's breath caught. Iron seals towered before him, layered upon layered, stretching so far upward he couldn't see their end. They hummed with power, ancient and absolute, etched with symbols that hurt to look at for too long. Behind them, something shifted. So, Naruto said, steadying himself despite the knot in his chest, this is the deluxe version, huh? A low sound rolled through the space. Not laughter, not anger. Recognition. You touched the lock. The voice wasn't teasing now. It was attentive. Naruto swallowed. I didn't mean to pass out again. Lies. The word wasn't cruel, just factual. You wanted answers. Naruto clenched his fists. Yeah, I did. The shadows behind the bars pulled back slightly. Not enough to reveal a full shape, but enough for Naruto to feel it. Vastness. Heat. A presence that pressed against reality itself. You've been dancing around the edges of yourself since the bridge. Feeling, sensing, influencing. The voice lowered, heavy with something ancient. But you finally touched the one place where your power and mine overlap. Naruto's gaze dropped instinctively to where his stomach should be. The seal, he said quietly. The knot. The purple light pulsed. Your bloodline doesn't stop at others. It was never meant to. Naruto's heart began to race. You're saying, I can use it on myself? A pause. Then, you already are. The realization hit like a punch. His control. His resilience. The way his body adapted faster than it should. The way emotions sharpened instead of overwhelming him. You're not just sealed inside me, Naruto whispered. You're threaded through me. The pressure behind the bars shifted. Approval, maybe. You finally see the truth, brat. Naruto straightened. So that purple mark, he said. That's not a weakness. No. The word resonated like a bell. It's the anchor. The space trembled, not violently, but deliberately. Red is instinct. White is amplification. Black is restraint. The chakra flared brighter. Purple is balance. Naruto exhaled slowly. So if I learn to control that, he began, then you stop being dragged under and start deciding how deep you go. The bars loomed closer, filling his vision. But understand this, Naruto Uzumaki. The voice sharpened, iron beneath the silk. Touch that spiral again without discipline, and you won't just fall unconscious. Naruto met the unseen gaze without flinching. I'll lose myself. A long silence followed. Then, good. The word carried satisfaction. Fear keeps fools alive. Understanding keeps kings alive. The purple light surged, and Naruto felt himself being pushed upward, violently this time. Naruto gasped, jerking forward. Strong hands caught him before he hit the floor. Naruto. Sakura's voice cracked. Naruto, wake up. His vision swam, colors bleeding together before snapping into focus. The room. The mirror. Sasuke with his Sharingan still active. Kakashi halfway through forming a hand sign, frozen. Naruto sucked in a breath, clutching his shirt over his stomach. The spiral was dark now. Silent. Kakashi studied him intently. You passed out again. Naruto nodded once. Yeah. Sasuke's jaw was tight. What did you see? Naruto hesitated. Then, I found out why my bloodline scares people, he said quietly. Including me. Sakura swallowed. Naruto. He looked up at them. Really looked. I'm not broken, he said. And I'm not a ticking bomb either. His eyes flickered, just for a second, violet edged with blue. But if I don't learn control, he finished evenly, I will become one. The room fell silent. And deep within the seal, something ancient smiled. Because the boy had finally stopped running. Naruto stayed there for a long moment. Back against the wall. Head bowed. Breathing uneven. The tunnel didn't mock him. Didn't whisper. Didn't move. It just waited. So that's what this place is, he muttered hoarsely. A damn memory grinder. His hands were trembling. He pressed them into his knees until the shaking slowed enough that he could breathe without hitching. The doors weren't exits. They were echoes. Not all of them clear. Not all of them fair. Some sharp and defined. Others blurred into sensations. Cold, hunger, abandonment, pain. Too old or too deep to have words. He swallowed hard. The first one, he whispered. That wasn't even me yet. A baby's fear. A body that didn't understand the world. A warmth taken away too soon. And the second, Naruto squeezed his eyes shut. That one still hurts. Being hunted. Being beaten. Running with blood in his mouth and no one answering his screams. He let out a shaky breath and forced himself upright. Okay, he said, voice steadier than he felt. So I know what Tunnel A is now. Blue. Lonely. Purposeful. The past. The red pipes along the walls pulsed faintly now, like veins beneath skin. And if A is the past, Naruto continued, pushing himself to his feet, then B and C aren't exactly mysteries either, are they? His gaze drifted back toward the fork far behind him. Purple tunnel B. New. Conflicting. Intimidating. Red tunnel C. Ancient. Playful. Dangerous. A dry chuckle escaped him. Great, he muttered. My choices are trauma, potential insanity, or the nine-tailed murder fluff. Hey, the voice surfaced smoothly, closer than before. I prefer ancient apex predator. Naruto snorted despite himself. You would. He straightened, wiping his palms on his pants. So, he said, more serious now. This place exists because of the seal, right? Because of you. The correction was immediate. The seal just gave it structure. Naruto frowned. So I'm walking around inside my own head? Inside the parts you never looked at. The tunnel lights flickered. You humans love pretending you're only made of what you remember willingly. Naruto stared down the blue tunnel, at the door that still seemed to hum faintly with old pain. Then why show me that stuff now? He asked quietly. Why not sooner? There was a pause. Because before, you survived by forgetting. Now, you want to understand. The words settled heavy in his chest. And if I keep going down, Naruto said, I'll just keep reliving everything I tried to bury. Yes. No sugarcoating. No mockery. Naruto nodded once. Not today, he decided. He turned away from Tunnel A. His steps were slower as he made his way back toward the fork, kunai still tight in his grip. When the three tunnels came back into view, he stopped again. Purple, red, future, or fox? You know, Naruto said, glancing toward Tunnel C. For someone sealed inside me, you're being awfully quiet about which one I should choose. A low, amused sound rippled through the space. Because if I tell you, it won't matter. Naruto raised a brow. What's that supposed to mean? You were never going to choose the purple one. Naruto looked at Tunnel B. It still felt wrong. Unstable. Too many possibilities stacked on top of each other. Too many versions of himself pulling in different directions. Yeah, he admitted. You're right. His gaze slid back to Tunnel C. Red light pulsed softly, like a heartbeat. Dangerous, but familiar. I don't trust you, Naruto said frankly. Good. The voice sounded pleased. Trust makes prey. Naruto huffed. But I do need answers. He took a step toward the red tunnel. And if this place is built on who I am, he continued, then pretending you aren't a part of me anymore is just another lie. The red tunnel seemed to brighten. Careful, brat. Self-awareness is how cages break. Naruto stopped at the entrance. Then I guess it's time I learned where the bars really are. He raised his kunai, not to mark the wall this time, but to steady himself, and stepped into Tunnel C. The red light swallowed him whole. And for the first time, it didn't feel like falling. The handle was cool. Not just not hot. Actually cool, like polished stone that had never known fire. Naruto let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Okay, good. No spontaneous arm loss today. Before he could overthink it again, he twisted the handle and pulled. The heat vanished. Not faded. Vanished, like it had never existed. And then, noise. So much noise. Shouting. Metal clanging. The sharp crack of wood splitting. The hiss of chakra tearing through the air. Naruto staggered forward, boots scraping against stone that definitely was not sewer floor stone anymore. What the hell? He was standing in a room. A real room. Wide. Circular. Windowless. Torches burned along the walls, their flames steady and unnatural. Seals were carved into the stone, some glowing faintly, others dark and dormant. The air smelled like sweat, ink, blood, and fear. Not his. Someone else's. Naruto looked down. He wasn't wearing his pajamas. He was wearing black. Not AMBU black. This was darker, layered, reinforced in places he didn't remember reinforcing. Fingerless gloves hugged his hands, etched with seals he recognized but didn't consciously know. A Hittite sat on his brow, scratched, dulled, but unmistakably leaf. Older. He felt older, stronger, calmer. This is new, he muttered. A voice echoed across the chamber. Again, someone said. Male. Sharp. Controlled. From the beginning. Naruto's head snapped up. Across the room, bound to a chair reinforced with chakra-dampening seals, was a man in foreign armor. Blood streaked his temple. His breathing was ragged, eyes darting wildly. And standing in front of him. Me. No. Him. Naruto froze. The other Naruto, older, taller, broader, stood with one hand braced on the back of the prisoner's chair. His posture was relaxed in a way that made Naruto's skin crawl. Not cruel. Not angry. Professional. Purple eyes glowed softly in the dim light. Not slitted. Focused. Dangerously attentive. Why, you already asked me that, the prisoner rasped. I told you, I don't know anything else. The older Naruto tilted his head slightly. The movement was familiar. Unsettling. You did, he agreed mildly. But you were lying. He lifted 2 fingers. Naruto, the observer, felt it like a phantom sensation. A pressure. A pull. The prisoner gasped. Not in pain. In confusion. His pupils dilated. His breath hitched. Not from fear, but from something warmer, disorienting, invasive. What? What are you doing to me? The man choked. The older Naruto leaned closer, voice gentle. I'm not hurting you, he said. I'm just adjusting the noise. His fingers moved, not touching skin, not quite, and the seals in the room flared faintly. The prisoner sagged. Words spilled out of him, tumbling over each other. Shipment at dawn. False manifests, hidden beneath medical supplies. I swear, I didn't want to. Please don't. Naruto's heart was pounding. He knew this. Not the memory, but the logic. Distraction. Overload. Pleasure drowning resistance. Fear dissolving under misdirection. Not torture. Not interrogation. Extraction. The older Naruto straightened, fingers lowering. The prisoner slumped unconscious, breathing shallow but steady. A voice spoke from the shadows. Effective. A man stepped into the torchlight. Jonin. Leaf insignia. Scarred face. Calculating eyes. But controversial, he added. The older Naruto shrugged. Truth usually is. The Jonin studied him for a long moment. You realize what the council will say about this, he said quietly. Purple eyes flicked toward him. They already know, Naruto replied. They just don't like that it works. Silence. Then the Jonin exhaled slowly. You didn't damage him. No. You didn't coerce false information. No. And you didn't enjoy it. The older Naruto paused. Just for a fraction of a second. No, he said again. The Jonin nodded once. Then it stays classified. For now. He turned away. The room began to blur. Naruto stumbled back as the world collapsed inward. The heat, the noise, the presence of that future self snapping away like a stretched cord. He gasped and yanked his hand back from the door. The metal door was gone. So was the heat. He was back in Tunnel B, breathing hard, heart racing. Holy shit, he whispered. His legs nearly gave out. He braced himself against the smooth wall, sliding down until he was sitting on the floor. That wasn't a memory, he said shakily. No. The fox's voice was very quiet now. That was a possibility. Naruto swallowed. That was me. Yes. Using my bloodline. Intelligently. Naruto let out a weak laugh. Sasuke would hate that. The council would fear it. Naruto stared at the tunnel ahead. Purple light pulsed faintly now, no longer intimidating, just honest. It helps the village, he said slowly. Information. Interrogation without breaking people. No torture. Strength without spectacle. Naruto clenched his fists. That's why it's purple, he realized. Not good. Not bad. Just complicated. Welcome to growth, brat. Naruto pushed himself to his feet. He didn't laugh this time. Okay, he said, steady now. I'm not done here. And this time, when he walked deeper into Tunnel B, the tunnel didn't loop him back. My breath hitched. That voice wasn't in my head. It echoed. Low. Vast. Layered, like several voices speaking as one. Some snarling, some amused, some ancient enough that the words felt etched rather than spoken. I could ask you the same thing, I said, forcing air into my lungs, fists clenched at my sides. Pretty rude to scare a guy like that, you know. A shape shifted in the darkness. Eyes opened. Not glowing, burning. Red, deep and endless, like embers buried under centuries of ash. The shadows peeled back just enough for me to see it. Him, massive, fur like living night streaked with crimson. 9 tails coiled and uncoiled behind him, each one thick as a tree trunk, brushing against the bars with a sound like stone scraping stone. Fangs glinted when he grinned, because yes, that was definitely a grin. You walked into my den, brat. After poking around in places you were never meant to see. My heart pounded, but, weirdly, I wasn't panicking. Terrified, sure, but not helpless. So this is where you've been, I muttered, stepping closer to the bars despite every instinct screaming at me not to. Figures it'd be dramatic. The fox's ears twitched. Humph, you're calmer than last time. Last time, I snorted. Buddy, last time you set me on fire from the inside. A low rumble rolled through the chamber, not quite a growl. Necessary. Oh yeah? Didn't feel necessary. I shot back. Felt like getting shoved into a furnace and told good luck. Silence stretched. Then, you lived. Barely. You changed. That stopped me. I swallowed. The memory of purple fire under my skin, of doors and tunnels and screaming blanks filling themselves in, crawling up my spine. Yeah, I said quietly. I noticed. The fox shifted, tail swaying slower now. You finally looked. At what was taken from you. At what was done to you. My fists tightened. Those doors, I said. Those weren't just memories, were they? No, they were me. The fox's eyes narrowed, not in anger. In approval. You were broken. Again and again. And still you stood back up. He leaned forward, massive muzzle nearing the bars. Do you know why your bloodline manifests the way it does? Because my life's a sick joke? I offered weakly. A sharp bark of laughter echoed through the chamber, shaking dust from the ceiling. Because pain alone does not break people. But pleasure, fear, hope, memory, those reshape them. The bars between us glowed faintly, seals pulsing. Your eyes do not seek bodies. They seek truth under pressure. My breath caught. So tunnel A, I murmured. The past before you. Loneliness. Tunnel B, after. Change. And this tunnel. I looked around, at the ancient walls, the chains, the cage. This is you. Us. The word hit harder than I expected. You've been watching all of it, haven't you? I asked. Every door. I remember everything you were forced to forget. My throat tightened. Then why now? I demanded. Why show me this now? The fox's grin widened, sharp and knowing. Because you finally asked the right question. Which was, not what can my power do, but what is it for? The chamber hummed softly, the seals resonating, not straining, not breaking. Waiting. Your village fears what you are because they only understand strength that crushes. You understand strength that reveals. I took another step closer to the bars. So what now? I asked. Am I stuck here until I pick the right door? The fox chuckled. No, brat. His eyes softened, just a fraction. You were never trapped. You were remembering. The floor beneath me began to glow, violet, steady, calm. And now you're ready to leave. The light climbed my legs, warm but not burning. You coming with me? I asked, half joking, half serious. The fox leaned back into the shadows. I have always been with you. The chamber dissolved into light. And this time, I didn't fall. I returned. The massive fox settled fully now, tails curling around itself like living flames banked low. Chains rattled softly as it shifted, the seals etched into the bars pulsing faintly, steady, ancient, unyielding. Ask between subjects. But don't test my patience, Kit. Deal? I said quickly, sitting cross-legged and folding my arms like I totally wasn't sitting in a sewer having a heart-to-heart with the literal demon fox of legend. Q's eyes gleamed. Good. Then listen. Where we are. This place is not a sewer. I opened my mouth. Hugh's eyes flicked sharply. You asked for pauses between subjects. This is not one. Right? Sorry. This is your mind. That wasn't what I expected. More specifically, this is the inner domain created by the seal. A constructed space meant to contain me and isolate you from what I am. I glanced around. The tunnels, the doors, the impossible geometry. So the tunnels are pathways through your psyche. The doors are memory anchors. The reason they loop, twist, and disobey logic is because memories do not obey linear time. That made uncomfortable sense. Tunnel A contained memories formed before my chakra fully bled into your system. Tunnel B held those formed after. Tunnel C. His grin sharpened. That is where we meet. I swallowed. Okay, I said slowly. Then why did I end up here now? Hugh's gaze grew intent. Because you touched the seal consciously for the first time. Not by accident. Not out of pain. But out of curiosity. My stomach tightened. That was the condition. How I survived. Now, the ceiling. The fox leaned forward, muzzle nearly brushing the bars. The fourth Hokage did not kill me. He could not. Instead, he tore my chakra apart and sealed it. Into me, I muttered. Partly. That made my head snap up. What do you mean partly? The Kyuubi is not flesh alone. I am chakra given well. The seal binds the majority of me here, but fragments remain elsewhere, dormant, scattered, or reclaimed. My throat felt dry. So, you're not whole. No, there was no mockery in that word. And neither are you. That hurt more than I wanted it to. Why you hear my voice? Hugh's tails lashed once, slow and thoughtful. When my chakra mixed with yours, it did not merely strengthen you. It adapted. Adapted how? Your bloodline is not a coincidence. My heart skipped. Your body reshaped itself to survive me. Your senses evolved to read intent, response, vulnerability, pleasure, pain, fear, desire. These are all stress points. I grimaced. So my bloodline is basically trauma detection? Hugh barked a laugh. Crude, but not wrong. You hear my voice because our chakra resonates. When your mind fractures under pressure, I fill the gaps. That's comforting, I said weakly. It should be. I have no interest in you breaking. That made me pause. You don't. Hugh's eyes narrowed, ancient and sharp. A broken container is useless. Oh, but a resilient one? His grin returned, slow and dangerous. That is worth cultivating. Why now? You reached this place because you stopped running from what you are. I frowned. I'm pretty sure I've been running nonstop. Physically, not internally. The words landed heavier than they should have. You questioned the village. You questioned your bloodline. You questioned me. His gaze pinned me. That is why the seal allowed you entry. Allowed? I echoed. You mean I'm not trapped? No. The chains rattled again, softly. You never were. I exhaled slowly. Then why show me the memories I'd forgotten? Hugh's voice dropped, quieter now. Because power without context breeds monsters. And I will not create another. Silence filled the chamber. I hugged my knees, staring at the water-stained floor. So what happens now? Hugh leaned back, tail settling. Now you leave. You wake up. And you decide what to do with what you know. I stood, hesitating. Will I come back here? Hugh's eyes gleamed, amused. Oh, Kit. You live here. My stomach flipped. And you? I will be watching. A pause. And teaching. The light beneath my feet flared. Violet, steady, familiar. As the chamber began to dissolve, Hugh's voice followed me, echoing through the fading space. Cold stone pressed against my cheek. NNGH. I groaned, blinking hard as light stabbed through my eyelids. Not the red glow of the mindscape. Not the dim sewer lamps. Just normal light. Pale. Real. Naruto. Hands grabbed my shoulders. I sucked in a sharp breath and jerked upright, heart racing, only to be steadied before I could topple again. Easy, Kakashi's voice said, unusually serious. Don't move too fast. The world swam, then slowly snapped into focus. I was lying on the floor of the inn room, on my back, fully clothed. Sakura was kneeling beside me, hands clenched in her lap, eyes wide with worry. Sasuke stood a little behind her, arms crossed, but his posture was tense, eyes sharp and searching. "You fainted," Sakura said. "You just collapsed." "Figures," I muttered, rubbing my face. My body felt strange. Not bad, just awake. Like every nerve was tuned a little sharper, every muscle responding a little faster than I remembered. My chest rose easily when I breathed. My head didn't ache. Even the bruises from earlier felt faint, like old memories instead of fresh pain. Sasuke narrowed his eyes. "You were out longer than you think." "How long?" I asked. Kakashi glanced at the clock. "About 3 minutes." 3 minutes. "In here." I swallowed. "I had a dream," I said slowly. Sakura let out a relieved breath. "That's it. You scared us half to death, idiot." "Yeah," I said. "Just a dream." Kakashi studied me closely, uncovered eye sharp. "Was it?" I met his gaze. "I'll tell you later." Something flickered in his expression. Acceptance, maybe. Or trust. "Fair enough," he said. "But next time you experiment with your seal, try not to do it standing up." I snorted weakly. "Funny. Someone else said that too." Sakura blinked. "Someone else?" "Never mind." I pushed myself up, half expecting dizziness. It didn't come. Instead, I stood easily, balance perfect, feet steady on the floor. Sasuke noticed. Of course he did. "You're different," he said quietly. I looked down at my hands. They were still my hands, but they felt mine in a way they hadn't before. "Yeah," I admitted. "I think I am." Outside, the village was quiet, normal, unaware that anything had changed. Inside me, something old had opened its eyes. And for the first time, I knew exactly where I stood. Sasuke and I broke our glare off at Sakura's question. "What?" I blinked, brain lagging a step behind. "Sleeping arrangement?" Sakura gestured vaguely at the room. "I mean, it's late. Naruto just woke up. Kakashi-sensei's already said we're staying here for the night. So, who sleeps where?" Kakashi checked the clock, then nodded. "We leave early tomorrow. Everyone should get rest." "Naruto." His eye flicked to me briefly. "Especially you." I opened my mouth to argue that I felt fine. Better than fine, actually, but my jaw betrayed me with another yawn. Big. Loud. Embarrassing. "Traitor," I muttered to my own body. Sakura crossed her arms, clearly satisfied. "See? He's exhausted." Sasuke said. "He drops unconscious for hours, and now he's suddenly tired." "Typical. Team." I snapped weakly, then sighed. "Fine. I'm tired." Kakashi clapped his hands once. "All right then. Sakura, you take one bed. Naruto, you take the other." Sasuke raised an eyebrow. "And me?" "You get the chair," Kakashi said without missing a beat. "TCH." Sakura hesitated. "Shouldn't Sasuke get a bed too?" "No," Kakashi replied calmly. "If Naruto has another episode, I want one of you close enough to wake him immediately. Sasuke's the lightest sleeper." Sasuke shot him a look. "You planned this." Kakashi's eye curved. "Experience." I snorted before I could stop myself. "Shut up," Sasuke muttered, but he dragged the chair closer to my bed anyway, turning it so he could lean back against the wall with his arms crossed. Sakura moved to the other bed, pausing to glance at me. "You okay?" "Really?" I hesitated. Images flickered at the back of my mind. Chains, red eyes, heat, laughter that echoed in my bones. "Yeah," I said finally. "I think so." She studied me for a moment, then nodded, satisfied enough for now. "If you feel weird again, you tell us. No more passing out without warning." "Bossy," I said, but there was no heat in it. Kakashi headed for the door. "I'll take first watch." As he stepped out, the room settled into an uneasy quiet. Lamps dimmed. The air cooled. Outside, the distant sounds of the village drifted in through the window. I lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. My body felt heavy now. Not bad heavy, just the kind that came after something big. Like after a mission that changed things. Sasuke shifted in the chair. That fox, he said quietly. You really saw it? I turned my head slightly. Yeah. Was it real? I thought of Q's voice, of the certainty in it. Too real to be a dream. He didn't reply right away. If it tries anything, Sasuke said at last, I'll stop it. I smiled faintly, staring up at the ceiling. Thanks, team. HN. Sleep crept up on me faster than I expected. As my eyes slid shut, I felt it again. That steady presence, not loud, not invasive. Just there. Rest, kid. Tomorrow's going to be interesting. My lips twitched. You're still annoying, I murmured. A deep, amused chuckle echoed somewhere far away. And then I slept. For a few blessed minutes, everything stayed quiet. The kind of quiet that only happens late at night, when even your thoughts slow down a bit and your body finally remembers it's allowed to rest. Sasuke's breathing evened out first, slow and controlled, like he'd flipped a switch. Sakura took longer. She shifted once, tugged the blanket up, then finally went still. I stared at the ceiling. Of course, my brain, traitor that it is, refused to shut up. Don't move. Don't think. Don't breathe too loudly. Do not roll over. I could feel the warmth on either side of me, Sasuke's steady heat to my left, Sakura's softer presence to my right. Not touching, just there. Close enough that every tiny movement felt illegal. This is fine, Naruto. Totally fine. Perfectly normal. Just 3 teammates sharing a bed like functional, emotionally stable ninja. Yeah, right. I shifted my arm a fraction to get more comfortable. Sakura made a small noise in her sleep and turned slightly toward me. I froze. Every muscle locked up like I'd just triggered a trap seal. Okay. Don't panic. She's asleep. Sleeping people move. It's normal. Totally normal. You are not a pervert. You are a respectable future Hokage. Breathe. I took a careful breath in through my nose and immediately became painfully aware of several things. 1. Sakura smells nice. Like soap and something floral, probably shampoo. 2. My stupid fox-enhanced senses were not helping. 3. My body, freshly remodeled by a perverted ancient demon, had opinions about this situation. Traitor, I muttered under my breath. Oh, relax, kid. The voice drifted in lazily, smug as ever. You're doing great. Haven't even drooled yet. Shut up. Just saying, this is excellent motivation. I mentally shoved the fox into a corner and slammed the door. Nope. No. Not happening. I focused on something else. Anything else. Mission reports. Chakra control exercises. Ramen recipes. The council's stupid faces when I tell them about my bloodline. Ibiki Marino's scars. Kakashi's dumb book. Okay, maybe not that last one. Gradually, the tension bled out of my muscles. My breathing slowed. The bed dipped slightly as Sakura settled fully, her shoulder barely brushing my arm. I didn't die. Good sign. Sasuke shifted once, mumbling something unintelligible, then went still again. For a moment, I glanced sideways at him. Even asleep, his brow was faintly furrowed, like he was ready to wake up swinging. He really trusts me enough to sleep like this, huh? The thought surprised me more than anything else tonight. Huh. My eyelids grew heavier. Maybe Q was right about one thing. Whatever else had changed, my body really could handle more now. More exhaustion. More chaos. More everything. As sleep finally crept in, one last thought drifted through my head, half amused, half resigned. Tomorrow, I'm going to have to explain a demon fox, a bloodline that knocks people out with nosebleeds, and why I passed out for 3 hours. Yeah, morning's gonna suck. And with that deeply prophetic realization, I finally fell asleep.
That's all for now. If you enjoy them, please like, share, and do comment.